just want to get the video up so they can see us getting set up, and you can go ahead and share it.
All right.
The wages of sin is death.
I'm hearing Jesus. Oh my God, the Redeemer sermon from last week was about race.
Billy Graham.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he passed
away.
Just take a listen to it.
I find it.
Fun podcast. Redeemer, Kansas City. It's Redeemer, Kansas City, race. That was good.
Robert, what are you doing? What are you making?
There, I shared it.
I'm gonna draw your face during the whole thing.
Yeah.
You already shared it.
All right, I want to see what you come up with.
My speech students were like, Mr. Johnson's rich. I was like, where do you get that? They're like, his iPad.
What?
That's what they always say.
And then they're like, and he flies to Florida every weekend.
Every weekend.
That was like,
Yeah, I got it.
To his second house
I got it.
in Florida.
I did go to Florida last weekend.
You're right. I didn't believe you, but all the kids do think you're rich.
I have to tell them.
And then they go, well, man, I mentioned something about your dog. And they're like, you know Mr. Johnson's dog? Yeah, come on. And then they're like, you guys hang out outside school.
Yeah, they think that's so
And
weird.
they're like,
All right, y'all ready?
Yeah.
Looks like Jesus more so than you.
Mike's is going to be hot, so. All right, good evening. This is your host, Tyrone Gathers Jr. on the Source of the Inkwell on KUAW, Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom, the first urban voice of Kansas City, Missouri. You can listen to this broadcast on a number of ways. You can hit us up on www.kuaw.org or on the TuneIn app. Just type in KUAW and you will hear this amazing, wonderfully blessed show. Or on our Facebook live streams, go to KUAW/LPFM, and you'll be able to actually see us and interact with us. This is an interactive broadcast, so you can either contact us at 816-599-6. Oh, man. 816-599-6893. Tongue twister. It's been a long day. Or check us out on that KUAW stream. This is a very nice show, very helpful show, very educational show. Why? Because I have nothing but teachers in here. This is a teacher table talk. We do these quarterly. And today we are joined by my panel. Please introduce yourself. Tell us your subject and the school in which you teach at.
Hey, I'm Angela Lorang, and I teach 7th grade English Language Arts. I teach at Raytown Middle School.
I'm Robert Johnson. I teach 7th grade and 6th grade math, and I also teach at Raytown Middle School.
I'm Marcus Liddell. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math, and I teach at Genesis School.
Hi, I'm Alicia Lee. I teach middle school ELA, English Language Arts, and I also teach at Genesis School.
And I'm Tyrone Gathers Jr. I teach ELA at Raytown Middle School.
We got Jim right
And, I think the four of us guest teachers all have something else in common. We're all Teach for America. Kansas City.
Yeah, yes, we do.
TFA?
So I'm surrounded by TFA.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like being at work. That's all good. You know, my thing is, you know, as long as you're up in there teaching for these kids, you know, it's a definite good thing. I know I've taught with Angie and Robert for 2 years now, and I can definitely say that these two individuals have a heart for children. I just met Marcus and Alicia today, and they are over at Genesis with Tina Hines Booth. And I've been knowing Tina for, I would say, my entire educational career. And I know for a fact that she hires individuals who have heart for children also. So I'm definitely in a room with individuals who know what they're doing in the classroom. Because I know for a fact I wouldn't be working with individuals who don't know what they're doing. And also Tina has a very phenomenal staff over there at Genesis. So shout out to both schools for letting us utilize their teachers. Now, the key word I said today was schools. When you first think about a school, you think of children going in, learning, playing, recess, typical hell raising every now and then with the behavior issues. But now we see something different. We're seeing that our school settings are settings for war zones. I would say now it's only February. March is like knocking on the door, and we're at our, 18th school shooting. It's starting to become a scary atmosphere. Now, I want our panel to discuss first what they know about the most recent school shooting that took place last week in Florida. Tell us what you know about it, how you felt about hearing it, and also where you were. Now, to kind of start it off, I know where I was. We had a fire drill around the exact same time they had their fire drill, which led to the actual shooting. And when I found that out, it kind of sent a very eerie chill down my spine. So I'm going to be quiet, and I want my panel to kind of discuss and deviate where they were and how they felt about it. Just jump in when you feel the groove.
Well, I'll start out. The first thing that I knew about it was I got a call from my father telling me about it. He said, Marcus, I saw this on the news, and it made me think of you. Just wanted to check in, make sure that everything's okay. And I think, so my family and I grew up in Wisconsin. So it was a kind of a long distance for him to be calling from to check in on me. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, really drove home to me how much of an impact something like this has. It's not just in the community where it happens, but everybody who's involved in education in some way, whether you're a parent or a teacher or the parent of a teacher or any even like a myriad number of other roles that people play, is affected by something like this.
Yeah, it's like a ripple effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I'll go ahead and share. So when I first heard about it, I was definitely in the classroom, and I didn't share anything with my students because they don't have access to their cell phones, and we don't, have TVs showing CNN and things like that. I know some schools do have the news playing, so they really didn't know or wouldn't know until they maybe went home or left school for the day. And just like kind of looking at my students and thinking of, okay, this is something we're going to have to talk about. How am I going to facilitate this discussion? And those were kind of like my immediate thoughts. I was actually kind of saddened that for the first time I felt almost numb. And that really resonated with me as like, man, like I knew we had a problem, but for the last time that I can really feel like shooken to my core was like Sandy Hook. Yeah. Like that was the last time I cried about a shooting. And that's crazy because no one should be numb to that. And the fact that it's so saturated is, it's just mind blowing. Like I'm almost 30. I feel like that, but, and for us to, just be like, oh yeah, that's really unfortunate. I hope something is done. It's just really sad. And even I was talking to our students today because we did a writer's workshop on it, and everyone got an article and a different perspective on the shooting via News ELA. Shout out News ELA. And what I really like about this tragic event, which sounds, very juxtaposing in ideas, is that these kids that were affected have done more in 72 hours than our elected officials have done in years.
And we're going to talk about that later.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Because I like you.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was going to, so I won't get too into it, but that's what I was going to talk about with my reaction, because I didn't find out at all on Wednesday, just being in school, didn't find out till afterwards. And then we had conferences the next day, and then we had Friday off, right? Was that the right timeline? Yeah.
We had the week off.
And then we had President's Day off, and then we had 3 snow days in a row. So the first day back was this Friday, and it was the only day we had in school. So, it was a wild Friday, and we didn't talk about it. And then I was thinking, okay, we got to talk about this, especially in the ELA classroom. We have to write about this. And it's difficult to bring up. I find this particular topic difficult to bring up because with the Las Vegas shooting, we talked about it in class, and I felt like it affected different kids differently. And like, I wasn't equipped to be able to like facilitate or like counsel or like, like interact with all of them about it. Because I got 33 kids in the classroom. I'm presenting them, like material and trying to create ways that we can talk about it that are positive and productive. And I felt like some kids were just kind of hurt after we talked about the Las Vegas shooting. And also, it's just, I mean, the more we talk about, you know, the darkness, the more it's just like hovering.
Yeah.
And so how do we talk about it and be productive? So I was trying to think, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this with this shooting? And then the Raytown School District, as well as many districts in Missouri, kind of around the same time, had like a threat that ended up being a hoax, but we had a shooting threat on Sunday night that came out, and we're coming back on school Monday, and I was like, we have to talk about it. We have to talk about it on Monday. We had about 50% of the students there on Monday because parents were fearful of the shooting threat, obviously. So a lot of the students didn't show up. So it was really a small setting. I think I had like 15 or 17 kids in my first class. So we were able to like really talk about it. We had a seminar. I just showed them the video of Emma Gonzalez, who's the high school student who's just awesome. And one of the lines she said, you know, that really stuck out to us was just like emphasizing, like she just kept saying the students. And my students were like, she's in the same generation as us. Like she's like a couple years older than us.
Right.
And that like, they were really drawn into that, that history is being made right now by kids their age. So then we had a seminar discussion, and honestly, it was because of the smaller setting. A lot of kids weren't there. Everybody's voice was heard.
Powerful, wasn't it?
Yeah, we recorded everything they said. So
good. Johnson?
My school day had actually ended last Wednesday, and we were in a teacher meeting. As every Wednesday, we end with that. And, you know, I think I was checking CNN, and I found the news, and we just stopped everything we were doing, and we all started looking it up, and, you know, just really trying to understand what had happened there. And I think I agree with you, Elise. It was just numbing in a way too. I mean, at first you didn't really feel much because you're like, well, that's Florida, very far away. But then I think with what happened Sunday, it brought it really close to home. I mean, yesterday morning, my mom asked me if I was going to wear a bulletproof vest to school and things, which is like, as a teacher, I shouldn't have to fear that going into school, worrying about my life, worrying about my kids' lives every day.
And I like that. See, you made a good point. You said your kids. See, that's a real teacher right there. See, one thing people fail to realize is that when parents drop their kids off, we take the baton and we take on the parental role of those kids. So when those things happen, or when something happens to students in our classroom, it affects us. I remember I was telling my students that I've been teaching for a long time. And and this is sad, for every 2 years that I've taught, I've had to go to a student's funeral. And out of the majority of those funerals I went to, all but one was murder. So it really does something to you. And there's been times where I've even contemplated about not even teaching anymore because of that. So when I'm sitting in the classroom and I see my children looking at me saying, hey, you know, what do we do? Or what is going on with this? Yesterday, I told my students, look, I'm not coming at you as a teacher. No. Teachers at home. I'm coming at you like a parent should come at you. And we sat and we had that talk. And today, when the other kids came back, they were like, we had the most real discussion in class. Mr. Gathers was not here. It was Dad. And that's what we needed. And we felt safe in this school building because he had those conversations with us. And there are those rare moments where we have to sit and say, you know, the teacher has to go. And I got to come at you as a person, as a parent, as someone that loves you, as someone that cares for you. Because I think when the kids saw that, they started becoming more comfortable. I'm going to bring it closer to home because Angie, you and Robert made a good point. And I know Marcus and Elise, before we got on the air, we talked about the situation briefly about what happened in the Raytown schools. I'm going to kind of set it up for you. Just recently, last week we had this situation, the shooting down in Florida. And when you drop a pebble in the pond, Marcus, like you and I talked about, it sends those ripple effects. And then you have these individuals doing these copycat things. You have people cracking jokes. You have people trying to mimic things. You have people trying to play on the psyche of individuals, starting hysteria. So on a beautiful Sunday afternoon, when individuals are getting out of church or washing a car, having family time, or doing last-minute lesson plans, me taking a nap, we have an individual conspiring to play on the mindset of other individuals. Now, I'm sitting at home getting a phone call from a relative who has children in school stating that, did you check the internet? No. Well, let me send you something. And I'm seeing these pictures and these messages. One of them was talking about, I'm going to shoot up the school, and they gave the exact date. There was pictures of guns. There were pictures. I mean, it was really talking about shoot 'em up, bang, bang at the school. Now, my first mindset was to call my principal, which I did. I alerted administration. But at the same time, it was just the thought that was going through my mind was, yeah, it may be a hoax, but I'm not going to treat it as one. Because that's when, you always get caught when you caught slipping. On that Sunday, it was not a good day for me. I was very uncomfortable seeing that. Because when I'm hearing these parents and hearing these parents telling me that their children are afraid to go to school, a school district in which I teach in, it was an issue. Now, I know, Angie, at least you and Marcus don't teach at Raytown. However, Raytown is just right next to Kansas City.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, although you're not there, it still affected you. So were there some conversations that took place on Monday in your school building based on what took place in our school setting?
Most definitely. Like I said earlier, we had our writers workshop actually today, but I wasn't going to actually address the shooting until maybe a little closer towards the end of the week, but it was actually requested by a few of my 7th grade students. And so whenever students want to talk about something, I don't turn it down.
Right.
Nothing's off the table. Nothing's off limits. Everything is a teachable moment in my book. And so they actually brought it up to me. I had not even heard about it until today. About the Raytown situation? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my students actually educated me on the threat or the hoax. Just like kind of hearing about it so close to home. I mean, the kids, they're scared. Like in the most, basic terms, they're afraid. And they were talking about, yeah, we have this many exits here. And I was like, oh, yeah, we do. And we have this many entrances in our building too. Like they started drawing the school and where people can come in and leave. And I was like, okay, we need to talk.
They were planning their escape plan.
Yes.
Yeah. See, yes. And yeah, kids are talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do I get out of here?
Yep.
Yeah.
That was very real on when we came in Monday, and it felt the classrooms were empty. I know some people had like 7 out of 32. I had like maybe half of each of my class, maybe a little bit less. And like the very first hour, the bell rang, first hour starts. We have this, we don't know if it's a hoax yet or not. We're just at school. We have KCPD. There's 4 officers posted at the door. We all have our doors locked. There's like extra security, but like we're going to go through with the day. We're going to have class. And the kids were so scared. Just like viscerally, like it was really, like you said, like taking off the teacher hat and putting on the mom hat for me. Like
parents,
like being able to sit there and tell me, they're like, why didn't you get a sub? They wondered why I was there. And I was like, if this school gets shot up and you guys are at school, I want to be here. And that kind of like, that kind of like surprised some of them. But I was like, I couldn't possibly not come today knowing that a lot of you guys are coming and knowing that school's in session because I need to be here with you guys and protect you guys and whatever I can do.
Yeah, no, it's me. Now, you made a good point when you said protection. Because see, one student asked me, Mr. Gethers, you got anything in this classroom? I'm like, see, protection goes beyond that. I said, sometimes being in the presence of someone that cares for you is protection enough.
Right.
But I think a lot of those kids, the kids that came to school, I think they needed to come to get that sense of assurance that everything's going to be okay. But I wholeheartedly understand why a lot of kids didn't show up because
the kids who did come though, I noticed today and even yesterday, like they band together. Like there's like an allegiance between them now. Like we're all looking at each other like, yeah, we faced that yesterday together, and now the other kids are back. But yeah, it was scary. I mean, the kids actually like asked me if we could close the blinds. Some of them asked if they could sit under the window, and I was like, yeah, sure, definitely. And we, it was something.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Boy, I think it's really been said. The only thing I would add is, I've gotten the same thing in my classroom, with maybe kind of one difference. I've got a large row of cupboards in the back of the room, and I've had kids ask me, Mr. Liddell, are any of those empty? Could we hide in those? And I find it really difficult to talk about because, I know safety is the thing that my kids really need. And I have a real yearning to provide that, but at the same time, I don't want to say something that turns out not to be true.
Yeah, I got you.
I don't want, I don't want my kids to think that they're safer than they actually are. I want them to have, an accurate understanding of what the situation is. And it's kind of hard to balance that with this almost primal instinct to be there and protect them and let them know that everything is going to be okay.
I think when kids actually see that in you and see that you've had, that you will go there for them, it'll make the connection stronger.
Yeah.
Yep. Because I was telling the students about a story about a situation where I had a parent trying to attack their child, and I got in the way of that and had to deflect the parent. The parent was high on wet, and it was not a good thing for that kid to see his mother like that. And I didn't like being in that situation, but when I got through, that kid knew, okay, I can trust this man.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think for me yesterday, I think as scared as every kid was, I really tried to carry on business as usual to make them like, I'm not worried. You don't need to be worried. I think my room's set up a little different. I have more windows than most classrooms do. So I did have several kids like, what do we do if, how do we protect ourselves? We don't really have, the wall we would hide behind. And so we talked through that with our tables and things, which is, not a conversation I wanted to have in a math classroom. Necessary, yes, for our safety, but
you'd rather be talking about something else.
I'd rather, let's work on fractions. I'd rather be doing that. But yeah, yesterday was very different. We sat at 52.7% attendance across the school. And then today to have back to 100% is very eerie and very bizarre.
It is. Yeah, the bizarre is the word, man. I do want to say to all of our listeners out here, all of our viewers up here on the camera, that the individual was caught. They were apprehended. It was a joint effort with Raytown Police Department, Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, the FBI, and the ATF. They found the individual. And if you read the reports, same thing. It was a middle school student. I don't know the identity of the individual. None of us do. So the safe thing to say is the person was caught. They have been apprehended. And with that, I think it was a big sense of relief. One thing that the students, we got some comments too. One thing the students need to realize, I'm going to say this and I'm going to say these comments, then we're going to break. But one thing that I told my students was, you're not the only ones that are comfortable. There were teachers that were affected also. There were teachers sitting down in the parking lots like district-wide. Do I want to go in here or do I want to go home? I told my students that this individual needs to realize that they not only messed with the school setting, it was you put the livelihood of the students in danger, the students' parents, the staff, also the surrounding community around those school buildings. You wasted the time of Raytown Police, KCPS Police. It was a big mess all over something that was very minute. But one of our comments here on our comment stream, we're getting some people checking this out, which is good. The situation is not an easy one to defend against, but we need to do something. And we're going to talk about that in the next half of the hour. I'm going to discuss what is being proposed, but I want us to propose it because someone else made another good point. It's good to hear from people on the front lines. And yes, we are on the front lines. You look at some individuals who go up in here and grind for these kids. We have another comment here. It says, any of these threats are hoaxes until they happen. All threats need to be taken seriously. The Parkland shooting and all types of warnings, and no one paid attention. Yeah. We can't, like I told my students in the classroom, we can't take these threats lightly. Because it's like you said, everything starts off as a threat and then it happens.
Yeah, I gotta say, I was really after we finally found out that it was a hoax and the student it was all taken care of and the student was caught and everything, I was reflecting, like, I felt really informed and communicated to, and like there was police presence there. I mean, we knew the FBI was involved. We had KCPD in our lot. So like, even though it was a difficult situation, it really made me feel like we're in trouble and the community is just like here.
Yeah, they're rallying behind.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how many of y'all got, like you said, your dad called you, and you said your mom talked to you. I mean, my mom was like,
grandma was praying the whole day.
Yeah, my mother was praying too. And,
Yeah.
you know, shout out to my mom, man. Mom, you know, I know you're convalescing at home. You know, I want to give you a shout out because you, although you're not feeling your best, you definitely are a strong supporter of this show. And also she texted me throughout the day and was like, I'm praying for you and those kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she at home, she got issues she got to worry about, but she was focused on our school setting. So much love to moms and also y'all folks too, because people didn't have to give you a shout out. They didn't have to think about you or check on you. You know, I mean, I know I had people that didn't. I didn't care, but still, I wasn't there for that. I was there for those kids. But it was a community issue, definitely a community issue. But there's something else that really just kind of bothers me, and I'm going to say this. You had some students who actually said, hey, mom, dad, grandma, look. And then you had some kids that made jokes about it, you know, and I think that's even scarier than the person making the actual threat. I mean, am I on a limb alone on this, or what do you think?
No, yeah, you're right.
No, yeah, I definitely had kids today that were joking about it in the beginning. And I just chalked it up to them being completely uncomfortable, not knowing where they maybe stood with the issue, or just lack of knowledge on the event in terms of the shooting in Florida. But once we really started to have like serious conversation, diving into it, and you know, I kind of framed it. I said, these shootings don't just happen at school. We've got movie theaters, shopping malls, nightclubs. I said, you could be anywhere, concert.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then once we start talking about, you know, removing the walls of the school and putting it into everyday life perspective, yeah, it's all fun and games until it really happens. And so that's when the kids really started to say, well, maybe we should think seriously about this. And that's when they started thinking about all the exits in the building.
Yeah. It brings it close to home.
Yeah.
It definitely does. And hearing some of those parents' concerns was an issue too. But one thing I told my students that I saw, there's always a blessing in the situation. And I told them the biggest blessing was how all those parents rallied together like that, how the community rallied together like that and got the attention of the school district and the authorities that, look, this is a problem. Y'all need to fix it. I love that. It's a beautiful thing seeing parents fight about something positive, because see, typically in our profession, we're used to the parent coming up being ignorant and acting the fool and doing the neck roll and cursing and all that kind of stuff. But no, we didn't see all that. We saw some, hey, look, I'm not fighting just for my kid. I'm fighting for all these other kids too. And when I saw that, it was, I mean, I saw that red sunshine yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely saw that. And those parents checking in with their kids, you know, I'm going to, you know, walk my kid to school. I'm going to walk in with my kid. Yeah, you're going to go to school, but I'm going to pick you up early. You know, I mean, parents really showed up. So definitely a shout out to those parents that was there, you know, busting for their kids. You know, I mean, it's, I mean, it kind of gave me a sense of how it was when I was back in school. It's a long time ago. You're still trying to figure it out, aren't you?
Super long.
Yeah.
So
You know,
long
I mean,
ago.
you know, back in the day, you know, where parents actually, you know, did that. And I'm definitely seeing those old school techniques and those old school strategies pop up. And I have another comment here from Miss Tina Hines, principal over at Genesis Promise Academy. Shout out to Marcus and Alyssa. Am I saying your name right? Alicia. So proud to work with these two individuals. Such a mindset match, and my students are blessed to have them as their teacher. That's great. I mean, and it was all about collaboration. You know, everyone worked together to have a positive situation, a positive setting for those kids. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's one thing that I still think about. I still have this bizarre discomfort in my stomach, but I get relief and comfort seeing that the parents and the teachers were
Yeah, everything kind of feels unreal
Yeah.
and scary, but then
Yeah.
like there was definitely silver lining. Like
Yeah, it was.
we
It
really
was.
all came together.
It was. Now we're coming up on a break soon. I don't want to start the next topic and then it cuts us off. I got time it just right. But when we get back from our commercial break, I want to talk about what's being proposed to kind of remedy and fix the situation. I know we've heard some things that were proposed in other areas, but like the comment said earlier by KUAW, we're on the front lines. And sometimes the generals forget what it's like to be on the front line.
Mm-hmm.
But in our profession, we do have a general who knows who knows not what it's like to be on the front line. And I'm talking about our Secretary of Education. I'm not throwing shade. I'm just telling it like it is. Okay. The views of the source of the Inkwell and its guests do not reflect the views of KUAW. I'm gonna just throw that out there. It's gonna get real. It's gonna get real. I mean, but we gotta have that conversation though, because we have people that are attempting to make decisions for us who don't know what's going on. That's like me going to your house trying to tell you, hey man, they don't need to be there. That's not my place.
Right.
So commercial break. All right. Our mics are off.
All right.
That was good.
Oh, wait a minute.
How long was the break?
Trying to share.
How much time off do we have, the others?
Time off.
We got 57 minutes.
So I need to figure out how I feel politically.
Right.
Y'all need more time than that?
Nah,
Okay.
we're good. We've all been
like,
thinking about it.
I don't know. On the break, one of my shows was playing. I had to cut it off. Now this show's like the Breakfast Club, the Misunderstood Neighborhood, the one that's playing right now.
Oh, okay.
You would like that.
They're funny on
That
there.
was fantastic. Gun
And
violence.
Angela Yee and everyone.
When I was teaching in Germany, this was like the major topic that came up.
Really?
Because
Yeah.
it's like what life is like growing up in the United States. They would always ask me about like
That's gun control.
gun, yeah.
Mhm.
Like, what's
Oh
up
yeah,
with
for
the
sure.
way that guns are, because it's very different.
Yeah. Even
You
Costa
different
Rica.
have to
everywhere.
have a hunting license to own a firearm, and even if you own the firearm is locked up
All right.
at a shooting range.
And we are back from our brief commercial break. This is the source of the Inkwell on Power, KUAW, LPFM, Kansas City. I am your host, Tyrone Gathers Jr., and this is a teacher table talk. If you want to listen to this broadcast, you can listen to it a few ways. You can listen to us on KUAW.org or on the TuneIn app. The TuneIn app, just type in KUAW and you'll be able to hear us. You can also go to KUAW/LPFM on Facebook and hear a live Facebook feed and actually see us live. I know I shared it on my personal page, Tyrone Gathers Jr., and I think Angie shared it on her page as well. I also want to give a shout out to the individuals that are sharing this video and keeping it going, and we appreciate that. Also, please give us a call, 816-599-6893, and interact with us if you would like to, or keep commenting on the live Facebook stream. This is a teacher table talk. I do these quarterly, and this particular table talk is safety in our schools. We had a lot of things going on, especially down in Florida, which I'm still kind of shaking up over that, as well as a recent threat that took place in the Raytown School District. Before we continue with the second half of our show, which is going to discuss some things that can remedy this situation, I want to recap the first half. The first half was indeed discussing school shootings here in the city. in the nation, as well as the recent threat here in the Kansas City area over in the Raytown School District. I want to again reintroduce my guests. Please go around and say your name, what school you teach with, and what subject you teach.
Angie Lorang, Raytown Middle School, English, 7th grade.
Robert Johnson, also Raytown Middle School, 7th grade math.
I'm Marcus Liddell. I teach at Genesis School in Kansas City, and I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math.
Alicia Lee, 6th and 8th grade ELA at Genesis School.
Excellent. Fun fact, you have 3 English teachers, 2 math teachers, 4 Teach for Americas. 1 that's about to retire soon.
We're going to Disney.
Yeah, right.
You said what? Robert?
We're going to Disney, right?
Yes, we're going to go to Disney. Yes. We already got that set up. And also we have 3 Raytown teachers and 2 Genesis teachers. So we have 3 public school and 2 charter or public charter. So we have a very diverse mix here. So yeah, we have a very nice reach. Now, I did discuss that we were going to talk about things to remedy the situation. I do not really want to talk about politics. However, when you look at the school situation, and you can see I take my jacket off, our schools are not being led by educators. I'm seeing them being led by business people. I'm seeing them being led by politicians. It's very rare you see a school setting or a school district being led by an actual educator. That's like a myth. That's like a unicorn. What else? What else is a myth? A satyr, a werewolf, and me being an English teacher in Raytown schools. There's not many of me up here. Anyway, that's mythological in itself.
That's
But
a fun episode.
it sure is. Yeah, and I got to bring you in on that one.
Yes.
We have talks, and so I kind of alluded to what I wanted to talk about earlier. We have individuals making decisions for educators who are not educators. Now, I'm going to talk about the obvious elephant in the room. The obvious elephant in the room is a decision trying to be made to arm teachers with guns. I didn't say weapons. No, actual guns. So I'm going to be quiet. I want to hear what you think. And now, like I said, either yay or nay. What do you think? Do you think teachers need to be armed with guns? Are you down with this situation?
No,
No, not at all.
So I got 4 no's.
And well, I think that my background is kind of unique to my answer. So I grew up with a Air Force, not veteran, but my dad was in the Air Force and my mom is retired FBI agent. So guns were in the home. They were in the purse, they were in the car, like bullets, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so I saw this stuff growing up, but I never saw it used. But I've never ever had the feeling to carry, to arm myself, not because I felt protected because of what was in my home, but just like the values and the morals that my parents instilled in me. And I don't feel comfortable taking any type of weaponry to school, not like for myself, but there are so many things that could go wrong. Like the list is so long. And I honestly feel as though that much, that many guns in a school with children around, nobody should feel comfortable, with that idea at all. So
okay, we have some other no's out here.
I think it's the same reason you don't have guns in prisons. I mean, they lock them up before they go into the actual prison. It's the same thing. You're putting more weapons in reach of sometimes students who aren't mentally stable or other people who aren't stable or could be overpowered and things could be taken from a teacher. I just don't think it makes sense to put that risk right there when there's so many other options that we could use to protect ourselves and our students.
I had a student during our seminar, the students brought up like lots of really interesting questions. I'm thinking about sharing those notes to administration actually, but like they were asking things like, why aren't there police officers? Like, could we have a security guard, but we don't have officers in our school building? Why aren't there police officers every day? I feel more safe, was something some of the students said. And then another thing that the students brought up, they were talking about, they wanted to talk about should teachers have guns, and I let them talk about it. And one of the students said, what if a teacher gets mad? And that was like, oh man, that hit me really hard. I was like, they would actually, like some of the kids would actually fear the teacher with the gun. I mean, to me, of course, I'm like, oh no, like that's my instinct. That's crazy. But then
being real.
Real.
Yep. Marcus?
Yeah, I think too, with all the talk that I've heard about the prospect of arming teachers, I haven't heard much talk about any training to go along
Yes.
with.
Right.
Well, you get a bonus.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
that's what he said. You get
So
a
it's
bonus.
like,
You
get an
give a
extra
bonus.
$2K if you teach
Right.
after school,
You
and
have
an
to buy
extra
your own
$4K
bullets.
if you have a weapon.
Right.
Right.
You have to buy
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
it's
think
silly.
I also think too. So on the one hand, that's not very well thought out because
Mm-mm.
other people who carry guns professionally, police officers, servicemen, women in the military, go through an awful lot of training because for most people, like it's really difficult to kill a person. This is not just physical training to be able to use the weapon in an effective way, but it's also psychological conditioning.
Exactly.
And I first of all don't think that's appropriate for the profession of teaching. I think you're asking people to do something paradoxical if you're asking them to develop close parental style relationships with the people that they teach. But then on the other hand, you're asking them to be prepared to essentially to
Take life.
be able to kill one of their students. And I just can't see any sense in that. I also think that it's a way to avoid addressing the real issue. Before I became a teacher in Kansas City, I taught in Germany. And the question that my students would, so I taught English as a foreign language.
Okay.
Yeah, 7th through 12th grade. And questions that I got from every single class that I had, from 7th graders all the way through 12th graders, was about the shootings in the U.S. And something that Alicia had said earlier when she was rattling off all the other places where people aren't really safe in public, stuck to me because one or two of those shootings happened while I was over there teaching. And so we talked about it with my German students in class, and they really don't have a frame for understanding it. And experiencing that from my end made me think sort of for the first time, why do these things happen here and why do they happen with such frequency? And they seem to be becoming more frequent.
Yes.
And I didn't, I did my best to look up ideas that other people who've thought more about this than I have had. But I really don't have a very good answer. I can say that, some people have talked about culture between the two countries. The culture surrounding firearms is very, very different. People have talked about access. That's also something in Germany. If you own a firearm, you own it because you have a hunting license or you have a license to shoot it at a shooting range. And if that's the case, then your gun remains at the shooting range. You cannot take it with you. So it never, it never enters into your home. It just never leaves the location where you use it.
Yeah.
And I think that's very different. It's also harder to come by, a firearms license.
Yeah. Now, when I looked at it, I said, I showed some students some of those memes that are going around on Facebook. And I said, I was honest with my students. I teach in my classroom. I have a majority African-American students. And I said, there's one word that is thrown around a lot and it's abused. What word is it? Begins with an R. I said, kids said, well, racist. I said, yeah, you always accusing someone of being racist. Left and right. You're being racist. You're being racist. You're being racist. I get that. But if you put guns in teachers' hands, you're going to see another word being thrown around. Threat, threat, threat. I was being threatened. And I said, now all this stuff ties into race too. I said, because you have people that are in these schools who don't have the same mindset as the individuals in this room. Because, I know there's a comment in regards to addressing the panel that's here. Well, this panel is a representation of individuals who responded to the invitation to come to the show. No, this panel is not a representation of every school system. It is a representation of individuals who wanted to come in here and speak, and I do appreciate you all for that. And but I know we all hear a lot of things, and we all see that talk from our colleagues, and we all know individuals who are not there for these kids. We do know individuals who make comment, like, for example, one lady told me, she said, oh, yeah, this school district is too diverse for me. I don't want to be here. The fact that came out of your mouth was an issue, and it made me look at her a whole lot different, as well as the individual left with her. You hear people refer to our kids as code words for racial terms. So I'm like, you want to put a gun in someone's hand like that? You know, someone who doesn't have a sense of connection to these kids' cultures and backgrounds, or people who have these stereotypes in their mind, whether they're male, female, black, white, Hispanic. I mean, or someone who doesn't have an issue, who has an issue with kids, period. You can throw race out the window, put in age. I mean, there are so many discriminatory barriers that I see in individuals that I work with, not just in my district, but in general. All the years I've been teaching, that I would say, no, do not put a gun in that person's hand. And one kid asked me, they said, well, I feel comfortable if you have one. I said, don't even say that. I don't feel comfortable with a gun in my hand in a school setting. So one kid asked me, we discussed the pros and cons. And I said, well, yeah, we can do that. I think for the sake of fairness for the issue, let's discuss some, if there are any, pros and, of course, the cons of having more guns in the school.
So we might as well start with the pro argument, because we'll be spending a lot more time on the cons, I think.
Yeah.
Just reading the room.
If you can think of one pro.
Yeah. Well, I
pro.
mean, I think the argument that's being put forward is, if a responsible adult that had lethal force to match the lethal force of somebody coming in with the intent to like shoot the school, you can avert a lot of crisis and you can save a lot of lives that way. I think that's probably the best way that I could put the argument for.
Gotcha. I think a lot of it is also, you're less likely to attack somebody you know is packing, I think is what the argument often is. So I think if you know every teacher in this building has a gun, you're probably not going to go in there guns blazing, because you're not going to make it very far. I think it's the argument for the pro side.
Yeah, I like that. I like how you spun that. Yeah, I definitely agree.
I think it just creates a sense of security too. I mean, I like that too, but like the kids ideally would feel more safe. Like on a day like Monday, where they have a shooting threat, like I think that in some ways they would have felt more safe.
I really don't have a pro.
Yeah, you know what? I feel you. And like,
I'm not gonna answer that.
And we have another comment that said, I don't think there's a pro. And I understand that. And the reason why I'm even doing this is because when you are having a discussion and when you are, you want to be as non-partisan as possible. I want to kind of give both sides a sense of an argument here. Although it's very, very hard, we had to at least try to delve into the mind of someone who wants to put a gun in a teacher's hand. Now we did that. Let's get back to the real discussion.
So I think when you think about it a little bit deeper, you really quickly come to, like, I'm not going to sit here and have enough hubris to say that I think the teaching population is going to do, better than the police population.
Of course.
People who are trained to work with situations like this, and still have, I mean, you could say that they're bad eggs. Personally, I think that it's much more of a cultural issue. And I think that it's a long-standing and deep-rooted issue.
And when you say culture, what do you mean by that?
Here we go, throwing around the R word. But I think that there's still a lot of racism in the U.S.
Yeah, of course.
And I think,
it's being real.
And it affects everybody.
It does.
I know that a lot of people who make the kind of decisions I'm talking about, the people who shoot somebody in the line of duty, have a justification for that. And so personally, I come from a family that's produced an awful lot of police officers. And I know that they all care very much about the job that they do, and that the reason that they do the job they do is to protect the community. And I know a lot of teachers who feel that way about their students. But I also know police officers who are not in it for that. And I also know teachers who are not in it for that. And, I don't really want to make a few bad apples argument, because I think, again, that this is something that permeates society so deeply. Like, certainly it affects me. certainly it makes me look at the decisions that I make from day to day. You know, I go home and I think to myself, was that really fair? You know, was that really something I did because it should have been done? Or was that something that I reacted to and maybe showed that I've got some biases that I need to work on? And I think the more opportunity you have to do something extreme, to do something that you can't take back, the more opportunity you have, not for fewer stories like this, but for more of them.
Right. Because it brings more awareness.
Yeah.
And your prejudice, right, or whatever, like a bias that you may have, like you're not just fighting against it is not like a small thing at the end of the day, like, oh, you know, I gotta make sure I'm not putting like the same, you know, kind of kid or like the same whatever, just boys or whatever, like out or in trouble or whatever. That's different when you have a gun in your hand. Like I gotta, you know, and also like, okay, the guns would be under lock, they wouldn't be used, whatever.
Well,
school, right?
We hope. we don't know.
We assume.
They just said give them
school,
guns.
kind of like what you were saying, that like, let's look at this. Let's pull back. Let's look at this from a third party point of view. You know, I am an adult. I am a white female adult with a gun, and I have 34 students who are, you know, mixed race. I mean, we're like mostly African American, but you know, I have students. It's a diverse classroom, and like, how does that actually look? Like, just how does it actually look? Maybe I don't feel it in the classroom with the kids, but like in actuality, like kids being educated by just a certain type of people, being like, we kind of have a hegemonous group who educates America. If we really look at it, you know, that's why you called yourself a unicorn. Like, you're different. Most people who are teachers look like me, just going by statistics. And that's not what our students look like. And so all of a sudden we're armed. It just creates a different tension that doesn't have to be there.
See, I don't, you know, I definitely agree. I don't think it looks right if anybody had a gun full of kids. I mean, you can have a Martian
just an
manhunter
adult
up in there who's
versus
green.
a child
exactly.
is enough.
You're right. Yeah, that was a very strong point, very bold point. Anybody else?
The first way that you show a student that they can be safe in your room, like the absolute bottom line, is physical safety. And if your students don't feel physically safe to be in your room, to be around you, you can't get any learning done.
Exactly.
Because all they're going to be thinking about the whole time is keeping themselves safe.
Okay, we got another comment here, and you would lead me to my next point. But I think an underlying reason persons want to put guns in the hands of teachers is to take blame off of government and law enforcement response. If there's a shooter, it becomes the teacher's fault. So much of the issue is about placing blame instead of yes.
I am not about that.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna say who you are, because this is very strong. Sydney Diane Cecilia Marie. Anyone know her?
Oh yeah, actually I do. Yeah.
Okay,
one of my good friends.
Okay, good. Yeah. Because you know what?
On the engagements.
Yeah. Wow. Because teachers have been the scapegoat, the red herring, the blame, all that for a whole lot of mess. Man. Yeah. I think that's probably the most powerful thing. Sydney, won't you come in Inkwell? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even thought about that. Well, now I'm even more against it.
Yeah, definitely. Because you put more blame on. Because already they are. I think another comment was made earlier that teachers need to get paid more. Of course, teachers need to be paid more. Kind of reminds me of that Key and Peele sketch with teachers getting endorsements like athletes. I mean, in a perfect world, that's what would happen. In other countries, you see that. But here you see us, we're like, I mean, someone asked me what it's like being a teacher. It's like an ant having a quarrel with a boot, and I'm the ant. That's what it feels like. And now, after hearing this comment, the boot is getting closer.
Oh man, interesting.
That is interesting. That makes so much sense. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even want that to be in my file at any court hearing, or you know. Like, where's the PD going to come for training, you know, and things of that nature. And I just don't want my kids to go to school afraid. Kids can't learn when they're afraid, period.
Yeah, you're right. If they're afraid, it's like you said, Marcus, they can't learn. They can't. It's a wrap. that comment is still resonating.
Yeah, we're all like a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
scared.
because that's what it seems like. It's like you know what? Let's set them up, and then eventually, when these teachers mess up, we can come back up in here and take the blame off someone else because we're incompetent. We don't know what we're doing. So we're gonna make the people who know what they're doing look incompetent, so we can say, "See, we told you. Now let's do it our way."
Mm-hmm. I saw this. You probably saw it if you were looking at the memes, right? But I saw this meme of this teacher holding like all of the just words, but they looked heavy of the duties that a teacher does, and it piles so high. You know, it's like teacher, tutor, social worker, like nourisher, like everything, parent. You know, just like whatever, all the roles, just as many as you can name, and one of them, you know, and then like they're being handed a big gun and they like don't have room to hold it. I was like, that is so true. Like people are joking like, you better pay me more if you're going to give me a gun. But like
truth moment. But
legitimately teachers are already, that's the biggest problem. I was watching this, or I was reading, I don't know if it was like it was something that was respected. It was a data. I want to say, I don't know if it was a Pew poll, but it was a data on teachers. And it was like, I mean, I wasn't surprised to see it, but it was like in the 70 percentile teachers feel stressed daily. And like, duh, I mean, we were sitting here like, oh yeah, well, yeah, we stress management, like it becomes a part of a teacher's, like it's necessary. Yeah. But it's just crazy to think like what is actually being asked of teachers in this nation. And we're going to add more, like, it's just insane.
Yeah. And you're right. And I want to kind of wrap this up because we're coming to the end of it. That's the thing. When you got a good conversation going on, the time just. But I want my panel, my expert panel, to give a suggestion on what you think can fix the situation. If you have a recommendation.
I first want to say that no one's taking anybody's right to own a gun, but the screening, the process, it just needs to become much, much tighter. There is no reason that you need an automatic anything in this country. I'm sorry, but if you really want to hunt, you don't need that. You're going to ruin the meat anyway. And, you know, it's not necessary. And anyone that is purchasing that, I'm sorry, but you need to be screened seriously. And if you do own that, you really shouldn't even be owning it. It should be the government's because it should be a part of your job and it should stay where you work. So no one's taking anybody's amendments and rights, but screening for carrying arms should be just much, much tighter.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think something that has been pointed out to me again and again is that their automatic weapons hardly do perpetrate any deaths. If you look at gun deaths, like the highest rate of, I mean, this is what people have said. I don't necessarily, I mean, I agree that this is true, but I don't agree that it's not a problem to be fixed. But the highest gun deaths in America are like, you know, handguns used for suicide is like the highest rate. And then it's young men against young men. And then it's like domestic violence. And like, then like way down the list is like police violence and then mass shootings. But the fact that there's something that could be done by legislation to stop mass shootings, and the fact that mass shootings, like, yes, the media like does obsess over mass shootings. And I agree with that. And now that I'm teaching, I don't know that that's a bad thing in a lot of ways. Like, but really, I don't know how to do this, and I don't know how to do this with legislation. I think this is always the question, but what are the underlying like issues? I think how we all came together in our disaster on Monday was kind of like a small piece of, I don't know how, but what I would love to see happen nationally.
I think if you know that you have to have an ID to vote, but you don't have to have an ID to buy a gun, there's a problem. That's a problem. You can go buy something to kill somebody with, but you can't help elect our next president. That's a problem.
I'm going to go off in a little bit of a different direction, I think. I think that we as a nation have to do a lot of closet cleaning. I think we've got a lot of skeletons that we've been letting build up. And if we really want to solve these serious issues, there is no easy fix. There is no one bill that we can sign and take care of it all. We've got to be really brutally honest with ourselves and move from there.
Gotcha. Well, closing comment from me is just like the parents did in Raytown and Kansas City and Independence for the Raytown, Missouri School District. They came together to make some things happen. Teachers, you see 5 teachers sitting here at a table having a discussion, coming together with solutions about a problem. My challenge to you is to come together as a group of teachers, a united group of educators, to fight this situation in regards to poisoning our school system even worse. We need to take control of education because last time I checked, teachers are called to be educators in schools, not politicians. Just like my closing comment here, there's a young lady sitting at a dinner table right now screaming. Teachers did not become teachers to have a gun. They are at school to teach. Educators, it's time to fight for that right to teach. That's our right. This is Tyrone Gathers Jr. I want to again thank my panel for coming in. I want to thank you for the schools that you represent and for the families and students that you represent as well. This is the source of the Inkwell. And remember, in the Inkwell, education never runs dry. In fact, it overflows. And when that ink spreads, it's permanent, baby. God bless. We'll see you next week. All right, cool. We're done. All right. Thank you. Yeah, we're getting lit up.
Are we good?
Yeah. Mr. Walker, did you know Charles Johnson?
No.
Anyone know Charles Johnson?
That's not that.
Okay. Charles Johnson made a comment. That's why I made the comment.
I think you should invite him.
Yeah, I will. Charles Johnson said, who put this panel together? They did not look like us at all. Yes, some very important issues they are addressing, but still, where are we? We must think about, we must think for our own, no matter what the issue are, and we have many in the profession today. Yeah, he's right. Like I said.
Yeah, we need to invite him.
Yeah, I threw out. Yeah. Come on in.
Is he a teacher? Do you
I
know?
don't know who he is. I mean, you know, a buddy of mine. You know, I know who he is. He's one of Kevin's friends. Yeah, a friend of mine shared it also. Yeah, a friend of mine shared the video also. Yeah, come on in. I'm gonna give a personal number, but like I said, you know, the bat signal went up. You're the individuals that responded, and that's what it is. And like we said, we're not representative of the classroom. We're representative of individuals that have a problem. Of the problem. So, yeah, it was a good show. Thank y'all.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And you all are always welcome. Next time we have one of these, or you want to just come in.
It's every Tuesday, isn't it? You do different topics. Different topics.
Yeah.
It is good. Yeah, we'll have to do another education one. Anytime we talk anything education.
I want to do more teacher table.
We've gotten students in here. You guys should know that.
We should know that.
No, okay, there's one thing you probably don't know.
Yeah, stop it.